Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We are currently in the middle of Pop Week, right in the middle on a Wednesday. And so far, we've kind of seen two extremes of pop music, something extremely mainstream and something that I almost can't call pop. So, I'm pretty interested to see where we go from here. There's a lot of directions. We can come back and kind of find a center, or we could keep pushing out towards the fringe. I do hope we come back a little bit. This band is 100 gecs. It is called Ringtone. It is a remix featuring Charli XCX, Rico Nasty, and Kero Kero Bonito. I guess let's just dig into this. See what's going up.
When he calls me, I go crazy. Call me with my friends, it doesn't faze me. Windows down, riding in the SUV. And I'm spilling champagne all on my screen, screaming. Glasses screeching, 100 miles per hour. He like me cause I'm wild, got my phone in the shower. Ring, ring, gonna let it ring out. Sounds so good when it's on it up.
Lots of voice modulation. We had some interesting, like release modulation going on in the music. Catchy though, strong beat.
AAC, your ringtone could be anything. A barking dog, revved engine.
Almost has like a chiptune idea.
It's your choice. Would you like to hear my voice, or is it hard to talk when you're scared of where the call is coming from? My boy's got his own ringtone.
Heavy distortion on those background vocals. I like how they used the like a ringtone as the background sounds. And we went rock even with an open snare.
But I won't be next year. Kiss me on my left cheek, love me like my bestie. On the phone with Ashley, run shit like an athlete. We be at the games, yeah, but we never play them. He could be in danger, I still wouldn't save him. I be in the front like Rudolph the reindeer. I can tell you got a crush, that's the reason why you came here. You ain't gotta lie, just be honest with yourself. You wouldn't be here if it was for anyone else. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. And when he calls me, I don't come home. Throw away my phone, hide us out where no one knows. Buried it in the ground. So
Now we've got like some synth pop stuff mixed with like guitar tone.
Wait, Charlie, can you sing the chorus again, please?
My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I answer.
So that was interesting. to say the least. Um, so on the surface, this is a very interesting song. There's a lot going on. We have ideas constantly being shifted and manipulated and modified to fit different ideas. There's definitely a DNA as far as the music written on the paper. As far as the notes being selected, there is a clear line from start to finish. However, the texture work, even the timbre work, is all over the place. Um, so we have three vocalists. I don't know if anybody from 100 gecs. I assume it's those two people that were featured in body form and not in popsicle head form. Um, I assume those two are 100 gecs. Also because, yeah, there's a suggested video here that has the two of them in the thumbnail. So I'm going to assume they're 100 gecs. I don't know if either one of them sang. They might just do the musical part, at least for this song. It seemed like every time there was a singer going, they had one of their little popsicle heads accompanying it. So I'm going to assume that those are the three people, and they sang all of them, three verses, and then the chorus. And the chorus was sort of traded off. On a lyrical part, this song is 100% pop with maybe a splash of hip hop with some of the verses. Not all of the verses were kind of veering into the hip hop idea, but there were a couple of lines from almost each verse that kind of favored rhythm over melody. And we entered in more of a hip hop spoken word kind of idea. But if I remember right, all three vocalists ended up doing some or melody based vocal work in all of the verses. So it's sort of like a little back and forth. Pop plays around with hip hop plays around with pop. The two are sort of they've done a lot of interweaving in the last decade and a half, I guess. Lots of crossover between the two. So I don't really think that would pull it too far out of the pop realm. I'd say on the vocal level, this is 100% pop. We have the catchy, upbeat vocals, the melody lines that the vocalists are singing. We have digital modulation, which is very prominent in pop music these days, especially with what I noticed quite a bit in here is where you modulate the pitch before the singer changes their pitch and you get that robot sound. I am not a fan of it. I believe it can be done tastefully. I've heard situations where it kind of works, but just as a sort of vocal style, I guess you could call it, I'm not a fan unless it fits well with what's going on. And in this song, it seems to be used just because it can be used for its specific texture, because it sounds good, which I'm going to extrapolate on that in a bit because I think that's kind of the idea behind the entire track, but I don't feel like it was utilized because they wanted to gain anything specific. That there was no significance to it. It was just utilized because when they were messing around with it, or because they had an idea in their head and they put it into the DAW or looper program or whatever they're using, it sounded good, so they ran with it. Maybe they've used it in the past and they just really like the way it sounds and they tossed it in here. I don't know what led them to it, but like I said, I don't believe it has any significance to the song itself. The parts of the song where it was used did not seem to gain anything by utilizing it other than by introducing a new texture to that section. So, like I said, it doesn't work for me. That doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. It doesn't mean that it's bad production or engineering or anything like that. It just, me personally, not my cup of tea. But moving on to the music. The music is where things start to get a little sketchy. Is this seriously pop music? we had a straight up rock section in there. Distorted guitars, open snare. I mean, it sounded like we went back to the late 2000s as far as sort of the alt rock scene. Um, and the more I listened to all these different ideas popping through, the more I realized that this is modern pop. I really want to go back and listen to some older pop. I think the Churches song we listened to was fairly new. The Steven Wilson song is only a few months old. This one is less than a year old. We're definitely looking at modern pop songs. And I think I'm going to have to take this idea and this critical lens and push it towards maybe a decade ago or 2 decades ago and look at pop and see if this is more of a modern idea, if I just never caught on to it. But I've mentioned in previous videos, especially leading up to Pop Week, that to me, pop music is short run times, easily digestible music, usually catchy, infectious. Doesn't have to be upbeat. We have our pop ballads, but a lot of popular pop music in the mainstream is going to be more upbeat, dancey. Even if this irritates me, I might go on a rant. I'm going to try not to. I very much dislike how so much of pop music needs to fit the dance atmosphere and be able to be played in clubs and stuff, that even when we get something that is airing towards ballad mode, we will still get a dance remix of it for the clubs. Like, that just, it completely undermines the point of the song. All right, we're moving on. Golly, that just, it just irritates me. I anytime somebody brings it up, I'm going to talk their ear off about it. And I can't do that right now because this video will run way over and we will get so off topic. We were talking about 100 gecs here. Let's stick to ringtone. But yeah, so I kind of focused on the compositional elements of pop when I defined my idea of what it was. And I think a lot of those ideas come from my introduction to pop when I was, a kid or a teenager, coming into the 20s, and basically the pop I've listened to growing up. And a lot of it kind of fits within that mold. Even when we look to like the late 2000s, when we started seeing more rock ideas popping up inside of the pop sphere, when we were getting pop rock that was definitely more pop with guitars and drums rather than electric instruments and stuff like that, moving away from the synth sound of the 80s and 90s. Maybe I don't see this is it. I gotta take a trip through pop, right? I gotta go through all of it and kind of get all my time frame down on it. But what I'm getting at is I never began to think about the production quality of pop as an identifier of the genre. And that is to say, all three of these songs we've checked out so far work heavily with texture usage and basically pumping their songs full of tons of sounds. I think this song kind of takes it to the extreme. We saw, even within a section, we had massive modulation happening on some of the instrumental parts behind the lyrics, where we might start with one sound, and as the verse goes through, we end up with a different sound by gradual modulation, either by pitch or timbre or attack or just any of those little knobs that electronic people know what they do and I don't. um, stuff like I don't even know. I am not a digital music maker. That is certainly not my expertise. I'm not going to try to feign intelligence on any of that hardware and the bajillion knobs that they got in front of them and what any of them do. But a lot of them modulate sound, and we hear that a lot in here, in the two non-rock sections. And then, of course, I think it was the third verse where we got the rock track. And we can look at it as introducing rock elements to the song, and that kind of takes it out of the pop idea. However, I think in retrospect, kind of having the knowledge that we gained over the past couple of days about what these pop songs have done, instead of thinking it as adding new instruments, I'd like to think of it as adding new textures. Maybe specifically borrowing from a genre. We are borrowing from sounds from rock, but we are not transitioning into rock music. We are still writing pop songs, just with new textures for this, 40 seconds or whatever the verse length was. Um, and under that, guys, there's definitely a strong link between all three of these tracks where they don't necessarily have a strong identity as far as sound. You can pretty much hear a rock or a metal band and know that it is rock or metal based on the fact that we have distorted guitars, drums, and a singer. Usually as a bassist, I mean, you don't need to have a singer, and you can have bigger bands or smaller bands, but whatever. When you start hearing distorted guitars and drums, you know you're in for rock or metal. And you don't really get that here. We do have a lot of electronic music, and I guess that could be a sort of DNA to pop music, at least in the three that we've listened to. But I think a stronger correlation, a stronger connection between all of these songs is going to be their almost flaky adherence to any one sound. All of them are ready to change the sound that is going on or flip to a completely different sound whenever they want. And I mentioned it, I think it was yesterday, it could have been with the churches one, that the lack of physical instruments really opens up the realms of what is possible, because never at any point do you have to worry about carting an extra instrument or making sure that you have a physical person available to play it, and that playing that instrument might mean that they're off of another instrument. You can no longer compose for that instrument because the player is using a different instrument now. And all of the physical limitations, both in performance and touring, of having a large, smorgasbord of textures and timbres with you are gone. You can literally do whatever you want, whenever you want, and it is easily performed live in any situation as long as you have, the backing track and your speakers. There's definitely some freedom to that, and I know a lot of people kind of look down on pop and electronica and stuff like that for not having musicians, and I am in that camp. Um, I champion musicians almost every day that I can, because first of all, electronic music and samples are getting very good these days. So it's very easy, especially if it's not your focus. If you're not writing, classical music, if you're adding classical instruments to a more mainstream genre, you can usually get away with samples. A lot of samples are very well done, and the sort of control over attack and release and vibratos and all sorts of things. People are putting a lot of time and effort into the sample packs, and some of them are getting a little expensive because of it. But uh, you know, real musicians in popular music is it's sort of dying outside of rock and metal. Country, I guess it's really only pop then. Pop and hip hop are very vocal oriented. Yeah, but even then, you get your core musicians, and then, like I said, if you're wanting to add anything outside of the band, it's easily added. Um, but yeah, so I kind of sit in that camp where I've looked down on pop before for not having real musicians. And that's not to say that there aren't any real musicians in pop, or that they don't sometimes use real musicians when touring. Um, but just the fact that what they're able to achieve by going completely digital is sort of making me rethink about it. because they are able to achieve some things that are not possible if you were concerned about all the physicalities of what you're writing. So to me, it used to be a pretty straightforward issue where if you weren't writing for real instruments and real musicians to play, then it was inferior in a sense. But I'm coming around. It's right now I see it as not a black and white issue. It's a double-edged sword. You can do more by forgetting about the physical space, but I also think that there's something missing. There's the humanness missing, the human element, by going completely digital. So I don't know. I think that's so far one of the two best revelations I've made during Pop Week is really noticing that texture play is important, and then also because texture play is important and the focus on virtual instruments, that they're able to do things that aren't exactly feasible or easily done in other genres that do focus on actual musicians and physical instruments. So yeah. All right. I guess only some of that was actually about 100 gecs, but yeah, that's a strange song for sure. I don't think we've heard anything that's quite so varied sonically as that one. There is just a lot going on, and each section features a different vocalist and a different music style, but there's also still the common thread of what is actually being played underneath the vocals, so that's pretty cool. I'm interested in more of this. If anybody listens to 100 gecs, let me know what's up with these guys. The music video was interesting, but I really just want to focus on the music itself. And, I'm interested in what else to do. I noticed this is a remix and it features a bunch of people. But is there anything with just them? Do they only write the music and then they always feature vocalists? How varied are their musical tastes? Because, like I said, they have quite a variety of stuff going on in here. Everything from traditional pop stuff to more electronica to some house stuff, and then of course the rock ideas popping up there a couple times. Yeah, hit me up in the comments, any of you 100 gecs fans, and let me know what's up with these two. All right, that wraps this one up for me. This is where you guys come in. Now hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought and any information. Like I just asked, there's a description box above the comment section with any links adjacent to the channel, such as joining the Patreon campaign and helping support the channel, or joining the Discord server and chatting with the rest of the community. Both of those links, as well as many others, are in the description box. If you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. They help out the channel immensely, and if you'd like to be notified about future videos, they can help you out as well. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as usual, 10 p.m. UTC. Until next time, you guys stay safe out there, keep being awesome, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.